Welcome to Sessions, Tasks, or Job Queue. What to use? Hey, I'm Eric, and the title of today's video is pretty much the exact question I was asked the other day. Somebody had they needed to do processing in the background and was confused on which one of the now many options we have for doing something in the background should I actually use. So I thought, great topic for a video. Let me actually try to keep this brief and try to define the different options you have and what I use them for. And from a historical perspective, if we just for a moment think about old nav, we got at some point in time we got the NAS, the Navision application server, or the nav application server. The NAS was basically just a client without a UI that would run a specific piece of code in Code Unit 1 when it started up, and with that we had the option of running things without UI in the background. We didn't really have a great way of communicating to a NAS from a client other than writing down in a table, and then the NAS would hopefully have some code that would look in the same table and see, oh, there's something I can do, and then do whatever instructions that were in that table. And not really a good way to tell back what had happened or anything like that. So that's where we started. Where we're at now is that we actually have several different ways of executing stuff in the background. Let's go through them. The first one, and maybe we should go here. Here's my Business Central. So the first one, let's actually start there and say we have the job queue, and the job queue clearly can do stuff in the background, but just to be very clear, the job queue is not a thing. It's not it is a thing, but it's not one of our options when it comes to it. Actually, the job queue is just a pretty UI and a way to define tasks that gives the user the ability to do stuff in the background. So the job queue itself actually runs as what is known as a background task, and we can see that if we go into a list called scheduled task, and we can see that there's actually 3 scheduled tasks in my in this environment, and we can see that they are actually connected to the job queue. So these tasks, if you look at this, and what do we have here? Well, you see they all run Code Unit 448, which is the job queue dispatcher. They also have something known as a failure code unit, which is job queue error handler. And there are 3 of them. And if we look over here over my head, we can see that this is sync management. This one is actually a delegate approval request report, and this one is the telemetry code unit. And if we look here, well, those are the jobs that are defined in my job queue. So the way the job queue actually works is that you enter what you need to run in the background, what you need to get running in the background into here, and that gets scheduled through Code Unit 448. That then will go in here and look, so then I need to run this code unit with these parameters, and if that fails, we will somehow call code unit, what was it, 450. So if you want to put something into from code, you want to schedule something to run in the background, you don't need to go to the job queue to get that done, unless it's because you want your users to be able to control execution of this thing going forward. other than if that's not the case, then the job queue is just a pretty UI on top of a scheduled tasks. So what is a scheduled task? Well, we have an entry called the task scheduler in here, and the task scheduler. Wow, that was a weird word. The task scheduler can create a task. I'm not, because that's we can see that there. So that's just to keep this video brief. Let me know. Subscribe, of course, if you're not subscribed, and then let me know in the comments if you want me to dive deep into any of these, and then we'll do a specific video on either of them. But I want to keep this video as an overview. So we can see here that we're passing a code unit, we're passing a failure code unit, and we're passing, is this ready to run? We're passing a company. So here's the first trick sometimes, that if you need to do something in another company, instead of .change company and with all the headaches that involves, that's another video perhaps, then schedule it as a task in the other company. Much easier. Then we have a not before date time, and we have a record ID we can pass along as the data. So that is a task, and the interesting thing about a task here is that there is a definition of when should this run, not before. There's no guarantee that it will run on that time, but it will not run before that time. And I found in let me see if I can go back to this. I found this thing in the Microsoft Docs, which is pretty good. So whenever you have a scheduled task, this is, and we're just going to do this very quickly. So at some point we get to run the task. This will open a session and open a company. If we are able to do that, we will run scheduled task record contains an error. If there's already an error, then it will figure out whether to does like let's say that you're scheduled to run and then an upgrade is taking place, so you're not able to the scheduled task is not able to run because there's an upgrade running at that time. Then it will get the retries, and in the cloud I think it's up to 99 retries, and on prem I think it's 9 unless you change the setting. Then it will try again. Anyway, at some point it gets down to run the code unit specified. If there is a fail, there's a different path where I say, okay, we need to roll back, delete whatever's in the schedule. There's a table called the scheduled task table, 2 billion and something. And you can get into the situation where we run the failure code unit instead. So very well defined, but there's almost the whole entire video in this slide by itself. But that's a scheduled task, and I use a scheduled task when I want to do in two cases. One is that I pretty much want to do the as in the job queue, or I want to run something with a low priority. And what I mean by in the job queue, I say it has to run at tonight at 10. Well, that's a scheduled task. I will put it in here and put it as a scheduled task. But as a low priority means that I will schedule it, let's say a minute from now, or 30 seconds from now, or perhaps now. And if there's time in the busy, whatever, how many things are running, then it will run. if there's lots of stuff going on, scheduled task, and there's there it will perhaps take 5 minutes or 10 minutes until this task is the most urgent to run, then it will run in 5 minutes. So if there's something non-urgent, then I'll use scheduled task. I think you can find, if you Google Business Central operational limits, I think that's a great page by itself, by the way. Again, I think there is a thing about maximum concurrent running scheduled task 3. So if the stuff already running, then at some point it will be your task's turn to run. I think we need to go back to this page in just a moment on this video. So that's when I'll use scheduled task. The other one, or the third one, I think we already did job queue, scheduled task. The other one is that we can do start session in here. And start session, you can see it's almost the same. We get we get a session. So there's the whole concept of when you're starting session, you get an ID, so you can call a stop function again if you need to. But you pass a code unit, a company, and a record. So this one starts right away. So there's no, well, there is an operational limit actually. We can go back to that for a second. The operational limit is that you can a maximum have 100 background sessions per tenant, I guess. Yeah, in this case per tenant. I'm not quite sure what the on-prem definition is, but if you have multiple service tiers, but per tenant. The session always runs on the same service tier as where it has been started. So start session will run in the background right away. And if you remember this one, actually the first thing that happens is start session. So the task scheduler is in reality just a timed way of doing a start session. So I use start session if something needs to happen at the same time as something else is happening. One example is in the eFocus SharePoint connector, that posting is running, but we also need to upload some documents to SharePoint during posting. So that is from the posting main thread that has an event subscriber will do start session in order to handle all the document uploading. So it happens at the same time, but it does not take time for, uploading does not cost time during posting because it's handled in a different session. And you can have, as I said, up to 100 session. We actually have another eFocus app, the cloud replicator that replicates data to the cloud, where we run massive parallels. You can say that, hey, I want to run 80, or you actually, that's an input thing. You tell how many sessions you want to run, and it will use up to that session to spread out the workload. So we might have 60 sessions just in parallel pumping data into a cloud database. It's a product for replicating BC data into a data warehouse kind of solution for reporting and stuff. Pretty cool, actually. So that is start session. What's interesting about all of these things is that they all run a session, and because they run a session, you have, it opens the session, opens the company, all the on open stuff happens. So you get all the normal thing. You cannot do UI. So if your code is, sometimes it needs to run in the UI, sometimes it needs to run in a background thing. Either you need to look at client type, or you need to use the Actually, let's go back here for a second. So if GUI allowed, great function. GUI allowed will only be true in the case where there actually is a GUI. So if you're in the background something, then GUI allowed is false. You also have client type, and client type you can ask what it is. Some of these are redundant at some point, and now some of them are from the world of nav, but if you want for some reason to be able to see the difference between if this is called through an API or called through a web service or SOAP or from the then client type, but in general, if you have something that, hey, this could be used both as a background thing and as a UI thing, and you want to make sure that you don't pop up stuff or confirms or open pages or run page or stuff like that, then GUI allowed should be your friend. Anyway, let me know how you use background stuff, and let me know if you want a specific videos of some of these options. There's actually a option that I didn't mention, that's the page background task, a specific background task and now it's called a task, but it behaves more like a session, which is kind of weird, but there's already a video on that on the channel, so you can go search for that one. That one is specifically to offload getting data from like web services and so on, so that will not block a page, and then you can update a fact box when the data returns. But that's already covered in a video, and that's kind of it. It's a very specific variation of task for a very specific case, where what we have talked about are very generic and can be used in a lot of different cases. Anyway, comments below if you got questions or the stuff that you want me to do a specific video on. Otherwise, how about checking out this one? This video is filled with AL goodies, and I'll see you there. Take care. Bye.